Good afternoon. Welcome to the first of our 15-minute webinars, giving you insights from industry experts. So today I'd like to welcome Rhys Gregory from Effective Communication, who will be talking about social media stories and Twitter fleets as a tool for companies to use to promote their businesses. So Rhys, over to you.
Good afternoon. First off, thank you for tuning into Business Bites with the Chamber. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to talk to you about business stories. Just briefly, my name is Rhys. I'm Digital Director at Effective Communication. Since starting at Effective 8 years ago, technology has changed considerably. We still help clients tell their stories, but what has changed is the format of the communication. So in addition to PR, we now have blogs, social media posts, videos, and now stories. In terms of effective stories, we are based in Cardiff. We've got clients across Wales and England and even further afield. The company is founded by Alistair Milburn, an ex-newspaper editor, and we've grown into a very successful PR and digital content agency. And everything that we do is about the team and our clients, and we take great pride on doing an excellent job with those that we work with. Here is the team, some of whom you may recognize, but importantly, what makes us different as an agency. Now, we're not new to this by any means. We've been doing what we do for decades. In that time, we've built up our kind of blue book of contacts, so connections with businesses, other organizations, politicians, and the media, and our address book is like no other. Built on journalistic roots, we have a kind of a newsroom mentality built into the team. So we know what makes a good story and what doesn't, and we're also used to working to very tight deadlines indeed. All of our expertise is in-house, and we're quite honest and upfront, and we don't pretend to be something that we're not. When working with clients, we ultimately see ourselves as an extension of you and your team. Here's just a small selection of the organizations that we work with. So, business stories. I'm going to take a wild guess and presume that you've heard of Instagram stories before. It's in the news often enough. Here's a few recent examples. So even if you don't use or have used Instagram stories before, you're probably aware of it. You often see it with kind of celebrities and kind of influencer types. Now, if you do use Instagram, you may be familiar with content that looks a little bit like this. Now, what you may not know is that stories as a format is now available on LinkedIn. Twitter at the end of 2020 also launched its own version called Fleets. So something that you would usually associate with kind of consumers, celebrities, and influencers is now kind of at the disposal of businesses like yours. So if you go on to, say, the LinkedIn or Twitter app and you see these kind of bubble heads, I've got an example here on my slides, then you have access to it. You have the ability to go off and create your own stories. So when I talk to people about kind of stories, this is how I kind of pitch it to them. So, you know, kind of traditionally you would kind of post up on social media and, you know, before an event takes place to kind of advertise it, and you'd say, right, we've got this event coming up, it's next week. You know, what you often find is businesses then say the day of the event will probably post up later on during the day in the afternoon when they kind of get around to it. And it's usually after something that happens. So you see a post that says, "We've had a great morning," which is fine. It's okay. But what stories allow you to do is communicate the journey live and connect up those individual moments as it happens. So for example, if you kind of started your journey in the morning, the day of the event, we're getting ready. This is what it looks like. The team are on site. This is what it looks like. First speaker, second speaker, third speaker, all of these moments are happening live. Now, if there's one thing that I want people to take away with today, so if there's one thing out of the next 15 minutes that you remember, is that stories is not a feature. Stories is a brand new format of content. So when running your next campaign, perhaps you're announcing something, maybe when events are kind of a bit more back to normal, that you've got that. So when you think about marketing it, and you think of, say, PR, and you think about video, maybe a blog, you think about the photography that you need with it as well. I want you to of stories as one of those format types, because it's now accessible on all of these platforms. So, is that a format that you can use to reach your audience? So let me show you how. Now, whatever platform you decide to use, stories content has kind of these key attributes. So it's all mobile first. So you can view stories. So you create stories from your mobile apps for LinkedIn and Twitter. Now you can view stories on your desktop. You just can't kind of create them or really do anything with them, but you can see them. Now, the important thing to remember is that your story posts will disappear after 24 hours. Now, we say if you were using Instagram and you're familiar with Instagram, there's a way to kind of archive those stories. But at the moment, LinkedIn doesn't have that ability. So posts will disappear after 24 hours. Remember that. Now, they don't have comments. People can't comment on them. Instead, interactions all take place through direct messages. So when you post up a story, somebody can respond to it, but that response is kind of directed privately at you. In terms of kind of us kind of digital folk talking about kind of private messaging, that's almost the holy grail of kind of interactions. It's more one-to-one. It's direct. So, and obviously the other important bit is to remember that anything that you post, your images and video, are all in portrait format. Now, if you think about when you're out and about with your mobile, you kind of walk around with your phone kind of directed like this, don't you? Rarely do you have it turned landscape. Now, to create your own LinkedIn story, it's really easy. So when you're on the mobile app, you'll see kind of these bubbles appear at the top of your screen. Now, if you click on, say, the plus icon, which your profile picture, that's you creating a story yourself. Now, if you manage pages for your organization, or as we do, we manage client pages, you'll also see these additional bubbles, and that allows you to create a story from that organization's perspective. Now, you can record video straight from that window, as you can see here, or you can take a photo in the app. You can, if you've already kind of taken your video content or photo content, you can just upload it directly from the camera roll as well. You're limited to 20 seconds of video per kind of slide post, if that makes sense. You can also add a couple of more interactive bits, which I'll come on to now. So this is just an example of some of the stickers that you can post. Now, as you can see, some are quite cheesy, and there's many more that you can do. It just adds a little something, a bit of fun to some of your posts. But again, I wouldn't kind of go too crazy and use these. Now, this is an example of a post that I did the other day. Some of you may have seen it. Now, this isn't the best example because it's just a single kind of image rather than me posting up a story. But I just kind of wanted you to kind of visualize what a story post would look like. The idea is that you post a series of these and they jump to the next one. So you tell your story in little bites. Now, you can also get stats as well, but they're pretty basic, as you can see here. You just know how many people have viewed your story. So, but that's kind of all you kind of need to do to really understand if something is working or not. Now, before you go and post, you should be asking yourself these questions. Now, you should be doing this anyway, before you post any piece of content, but these are the ones to kind of ask, you know, what is the point of it? What's the purpose? What are you trying to communicate with people? Now, professional moments, we all have these, and it doesn't matter what industry or sector you operate in, we all have professional moments. Now, for the purpose of today and today's kind of business bites with the chamber, these are just some generic ideas that you can use, not just in stories, but also your wider content as well. Now, just to kind of quickly touch upon some top tips. Now, I've put these up, I've mentioned these already, but here's a little bit of a reminder about the ones to kind of look out for. So in your story posts, you can tag people, just like in a normal post, you can tag people. Now, the brilliant thing behind this is that the person that you mention, maybe it's a colleague, somebody you work with, will get notified that you're talking about them. So they're more likely to see it. You can add stickers as well, but like I said, you know, just don't go overboard with those. Stats as well, so you know exactly what content is working and what isn't. But the main point here is actually the last point. Plan a series of posts. So when you see the bubbles at the top of your feed, you know, you might post up at, say, 9 o'clock in the morning, I've just arrived, we're doing this for the day, or a new piece of equipment's just arrived at the depot, and you're going through it, and that's great. And you'll go to the top of the feed, your bubble, your logo will appear there. But when other people start to post content, your bubble moves down throughout the day. Now, what you can do is every time you post the next kind of story as part of that day, your bubble will return to the top. So as you can imagine, like I kind of picked on events, you know, you've just arrived, your bubble's at the top. And then a little bit later in the morning, you know, first speaker, you're back at the top. So to kind of have that exposure at the top of somebody's feed all day is really valuable. And here you go, you can just see in the screen grab here, where we mentioned, and you can see the story example over to the right. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of mention to you is that people are starting to get creative with their stories. And there are templates out there that can help you and guide you to creating your own stories. There's lots of animation and kind of video as well that you can add in. So this is just a tool here. There's a free version of it. It's called canva.com. And they will kind of guide you through the process of telling your business's story. So definitely one to look out for. Now, for those of you that are kind of new to storytelling, I wanted to leave you with this invaluable resource on how to tell a story. Sounds really basic, but this format is absolutely genius. So I'll get the slides circulated and the links, but the Pixar storytelling score is brilliant to kind of guide you through those, they call them story beats, you know, this happens, that happens, that happens, that happens. Fantastic stuff. So that's my introduction to business stories. I know it was quite short, but I hope you found it useful. Just as we finish today's business bite, I want to leave you with this question just on the screen for a few moments. Have a think about, you know, what is your story? Because you'll have a story to tell. And how would you build that into a LinkedIn story? And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email, send me a WhatsApp or a telephone call, and I'll be able to help. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Reece. I think that was a really good insight into how to use stories for any kind of business and a great little intro into that new content format. So I'm going to see if we have any questions. So we've got one to kick off with from Sue Torrey. And Sue has asked, what feedback have you had from businesses who've used stories as a content form?
Do you know, really good question. And sadly, I haven't got an answer for you, Sue. It's that new. So Twitter and LinkedIn have been trialing this for a while with select users. And unfortunately, it only seems to have started to kind of reach even us and our networks. So if you have, and with anything new, you can go onto LinkedIn and have a look at other people's stories that they're posting, and they're really mixed. Some people are treating it a bit like Instagram, and just like when you could kind of be a bit more social on LinkedIn, people are treating it a bit more like Facebook. So it's kind of a waiting game. But I would say, go off, start posting, see what happens, look at the stats, and you judge what works well for your audience.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We don't seem to have any more questions from anyone in the audience at the moment, but if anyone does have any questions, please just pop them into the Q&A chat box, and then we'll get around to those for you. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say, Rhys, thank you so much for putting this together for us and taking a bit of time out to do the first of our Business Bites sessions. We are looking to have these running every fortnight around this time of the day, so you can have just a quick bite of insight from another business as you're having your lunch. So once again, thank you so much for putting this together for us and taking the time out of your day to do this for us.